So, this sikha is going to be especially addressing the topic of Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah that comes out on Shabbos. Since we know how important Shofar is and what it's supposed to accomplish, so the question is, first of all, how do we do it without it? How do we do it without Shofar? And for that, he's going to bring a very classic Maimer the Alter Rebbe that explains how Shabbos can take the place of the Shofar on Rosh Hashanah, because Shabbos has something similar spiritually to Shofar. But the main issue that the Rebbe is going to discuss is about a very important part of Rosh Hashanah is Avodah. The reason why we celebrate Rosh Hashanah not on the day the world was created, but we celebrate Rosh Hashanah on the day that Adam Rishon was created, because Rosh Hashanah is about Avodas HaAdam. When Hashem created the world, that's His business. When He created Adam Rishon, that was the beginning of something having to do with us doing something. So if Rosh Hashanah is marking the day when Adam Rishon was created, about our Avodah, so how can we have a Rosh Hashanah without our Avodah? It just happens automatically. We don't have to blow shofar. And that's going to be the idea of the Sikha. And the Rebbe is going to connect it with a topic that Chassidus always talks about, the idea of Bittul. Bittul is the idea of our Mesirah v'Nesina to Hashem. And in Chassidus parlance, we call it Bittul. And there's different levels of Bittul that he's going to talk about. Benegel Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Shchalish b'Shabbos K'Akviyas the Rosh Hashanah Haba Aleinu L'Toiva Shiv Mizbarach M'Shabbos Zu. This was a sikha where the Rebbe said it, Shabbos Mevorchim of Tishrei, just like our Kviyas, it was in Chav Gimel El. Shiv Hamikdash Hayitoikim Avaloi b'Medina, that in the Beis Hamikdash they would blow shofar when it came out on Shabbos, but outside of the Beis Hamikdash they didn't. Even then. But this was actually in Bayis Sheni. In Bayis Rishon, they even blew shofar outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Yedua kushya eich yitochen shetitcha mitzvos asir tkiyas shofar. Tkiyas shofar hu inyan ikri b'Rosh Hashanah. Mitzvos hayoim b'shofar. Just like on Sukkot, the mitzvah of the day is sitting in a sukkah, or the Daled Minim. The mitzvah of the day of Pesach is eating matzah and not eating chametz. The mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah, what's the mitzvah of the day? What's the Rosh Hashanah unique in? Shofar. The Tamadavar, why is Shofar the mitzvah of the day? The fishing Yonish Rosh Hashanah wachtaras HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'melech. And if you listen to the whole Rosh Hashanah davening, we're the whole time talking about Meloich Ha'olam Kulei B'chveidecha, we shout out HaMelech and everything. The whole theme of Rosh Hashanah is about Malchus. Kedisa b'Gemara Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Imru L'fanei b'Rosh Hashanah Malchus. Psukim that speak about Hashem's Melucha, Kedei shetamlichuni aleichem. V'achtaris HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'melech Nasas Ha'idei HaShofar, like the Gemara concludes over there, it says, Ubameh b'shofar. How do we actually proclaim Hashem as king? Through the shofar. What does shofar have to do with Hashem being king? V'shekasar Rav Sadia Goin, she'echad the time the kiyas shofar hu lefi shekein oisem hamalachim betchilas malchusam shetoikim lefneim bechatzoitzrois ubekronois horns loidia lashmiya b'chol mokim ascholos malchusam. So the same thing, on Rosh Hashanah, we blow shofar to announce the Eibishter being king. Valpiza, eich yitachem mitzias Rosh Hashanah tamlechuni aleichem b'meh b'shofar, l'loit kiyas shofar, eich tiachtaris ham kadosh baruch hu l'malachim lo yadit kiyas shofar. Bevor b'zeh bedrush Chassidus, sheberosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos, nasis achtaris ha-melech, mitzad inyonit shel yom HaShabbos. Automatically, because it's Shabbos. How come? What is necessary when you have a real idea of a king in Yiddishkeit? A real idea of a king is someone that's not looking for the position. He's not a dictator. He's not someone that wants to boss people around. Just the opposite. A king has the ultimate bittul. And he doesn't want to be a king. What makes him want to be a king? We need to be ma'orer by the king a tainug that he's going to enjoy being a king. And from that, he's going to want to be a king, and then he actually becomes a king. Ki achtoras hamelech yaidezeh shema'orim es haratzon lemlucha aydam shachas v'gilui hatainug. V'chibim shebiyom haShabbos nimshach v'nizgal lahatainug el mitzad atzmoi ein tzorich b'pulasum sheYisrael aydet kiyas shofar. An ordinary weekday, the Yidden blow shofar, and that shows how they're proclaiming Hashem as king, and that causes by Hashem to have a tainug in wanting to be a king. But Shabbos is a day of tainug anyway. It's a day that Hashem rested, and He assigned it and made it as a time of tainug. So the tainug of Hashem comes automatically. We don't have to do something for it. The holiness of Shabbos is not because Bezdin says today is Shabbos. Every seventh day of the week will automatically be Shabbos, regardless of what a person does. The loiki yomtiv she Yisrael inu de mekatrin ulazmane, that Yidden have to make the yomtiv holy, because only when Bezdin says that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is on this and this date, so 15 days later will be Pesach. Only when Bezdin says that Rosh Chodesh Tishrei is on this and this date, so the first day will be Rosh Hashanah, the 10th day will be Yom Kippur, the 15th day will be Sukkot. So Bezdin, in other words, Yidden, we are responsible for Yom Tovim. Shalachein Amir b'Yom Tov Mekadesh Yisrael v'Azmanim v'chein b'Rosh Hashanah Mekadesh Yisrael v'Yom HaZikaron. First you say Yisrael, and then you say Yom Tov or Yom HaZikaron. Because only because Yidden are holy, that's why they can go ahead and make Yom Tov or make Rosh Hashanah. That's why when it comes out Shabbos and Yom Tov together, or Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah together, we'll say Mekadesh HaShabbos v'Yisrael v'Yom HaZikaron. Because Shabbos is independent of the Yidden. So therefore, because Shabbos comes on its own, the tainug of the Melech comes on its own, and it doesn't need our blowing shofar. V'af became b'migdash hayu toikin. Why did they blow in the Beis Hamikdash? He's quoting here from a Maimer of the Alter Rebbe. All the quotation marks are taken from a Maimer of the Alter Rebbe. Many, many different levels of delight and enjoyment. Just like we see in our world, there's different things that I have enjoyment from. I can have enjoyment from eating. I can have enjoyment from some other activity. Then I can have enjoyment from the very fact that I'm alive. There's different levels of enjoyment. And sometimes you'll sacrifice one enjoyment for something else. Let's say you enjoy working, but you also enjoy resting. Sometimes you'll put one away for the other. Why? Because there's different levels of enjoyment. The same thing in the Tainug Eliki by Hashem, there's different levels of Tainug. The Kivin Shem Migdash Yichaylim Lahamshach Tainug Naila Yoiser Ma Tainug Shenim Shchayde Shabbos Lachein B'Migdash Hayutoikim B'Chdei Lahamshach HaTainug HaYoiser Elim Mashenkim B'Medina outside of the Beis Hamikdash Shebalav Hachi Iyaf Shalahamshach M'chinos HaTainug HaYoiser Elim, because the place is lower, so we cannot bring down a higher level of Hashem's oinig through our shofar. The only type of enjoyment that we're able to draw down through shofar is identical to what happens on Shabbos. This is essentially a summary of a maimer that Alter Rebbe discusses in L'Kutei Torah, and is also brought down in many places throughout Chassidus. Probably every single one of the Rabbeim spoke about this topic, Yom Tov Shalosh Chayis B'Shabbos. There's a very famous Hemshech in Samach Vav called Yom Tov Shalosh Chayis B'Shabbos. There's many Mamorim of the Rebbe that speak about this. But here the Rebbe presents a question that I believe is only addressed by the Rebbe here and a few other places, but it's not in the Mamorim of the previous Rebbeim. Another important point is that's why the Gemara says that Hashem tells the Yidden, Hashem asks of us, Imru lefane b'Rosh Hashanah Malchus, shetamlichuni aleichem, Yisrael ay di avedasam poil im achtoras HaKadosh Baruch. Okay, du abir betam kvies Rosh Hashanah bech betishrei. Yom broi Adam Rishon, shu yom shishi l'maisa bereishis v'loi b'chafei be'el. As I mentioned before, seemingly, if you're going to establish Rosh Hashanah, make it the first day of creation. The first day of creation was Chafei El, it wasn't Aleph Tishrei. Yom Rishon l'maisa bereishis. Why don't we celebrate Rosh Hashanah then? Kivim Shabbos Chol Sabriya Hayu Kol Inyanim Mitzad Ki Chafetz Chesedu. When Hashem created the world, it was because He desired kindness. It wasn't something that we brought about some connection with Hashem. Aval Akshav Bisarusa Delasata Talia Milsa. It's now dependent on our inspiration down here below. We have to inspire Kaviyot Hashem to want to continuously recreate the world. Shetzarech liyas hayde avodas Adam davke k'moish haya b'yom broi Adam Rishon shehichter es HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'melech ba'amroi Hashem malach geus lavish. This is the capital in Tehillim that we actually say every Friday, because every Friday reminds us of the first Friday of creation, where it was said that Adam Rishon said Hashem malach geus lavish. V'gila Malchus shal Kadosh Baruch Hu b'chol habriya be'amrei l'chol ha'nivraim she'ba'olam bayu v'nishtachava v'nichra nivrachal l'fnei Hashem Moseinu. So Adam Rishon took that opportunity, the first day of creation, to appoint and consider Hashem as king. Not the day that the world was created. Kivin she'Yisrael, every Yid has a part of Adam Rishon in them. And every Yid on Rosh Hashanah is doing the same thing that Adam Rishon did then. Atam Kriyim Adam. Why are Yid, and the Chazal say, Atam Kriyim Adam? You're called Adam. Why? Al Shem Adam Rishon. Shahaya Kol Mekol Neshamas Yisrael. Adam Rishon's Neshama was a super Neshama that had in it all Neshamas of the Yidden throughout all the generations. So just like Adam Rishon initially was the one to make Hashem as king, so too now, every year we do the same thing. Machtir ma'kadosh baruch hu l'melech al atzmam, v'aydei gam al kol olam. That's why we say also in the brachas, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu, and then we say melech olam. We're always talking about first that Hashem should be a king over us, our God, but through us, to be a king over the rest of the world. And therefore the Rebbe concludes with the question, why do we not blow in shofar like we said before? How could it be we're not doing anything, we're not blowing a shofar? So the Rebbe answers, Yeshloimar, Shegam Zesh Ein Toikim B'Shofar Hu, Chelik Meklolos HaAvodah Det Ki HaShofar B'Nefesh HaAdam. What he says in the Ha'orah, every mitzvah has the action of the mitzvah, the actual mitzvah that we do with our hands or some other part of our body. Then there is the mitzvah, how it's performed internally, what it means in our nefesh. The same thing in Tkiyas Shofar, the not blowing Shofar is an avodah itself, as the Sikh is going to explain. Hainu she'eina kavon shebrashon shechal b'Shabbos loy kayemes avodah Tkiyas Shofar. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Ki im rather she'avodah the Tkiyas Shofar hi ba'ofen shel shlila. Some things you do by not doing. It's an avodah, but it's by not doing. She'ein toikim b'shofar. V'lo yoidal sheba'avodah zu yesh ilui legabe avodah tkiyas shofar b'poil mamish b'roshon shechal b'moisa shavua. By the Rebbe, whatever time we're in, that's the greatest. So now that we're going to be doing Yom Tov Shlosh Chayes b'Shabbos, this has an advantage even over all those years that we do blow in shofar. Even though we can say, what about the avodas Adam? The pshita shekedushas haShabbos eina geiras chas v'shom milos Rosh Hashanah ela adra b'shaydei haShabbos nitvasav oid yoser milos Rosh Hashanah. So we cannot say it's Shabbos, it's less. No, when two holy things come together, Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah, so it must be greater. It can't be less. Then there's another idea. That in the Beis Hamikdash there's an even higher avodah. Shaboy toikim b'shofar b'poil mamish gam b'Rosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos kidla kama. So the Rebbe is saying essentially like this: there is a weekday Rosh Hashanah where we blow shofar. Then there's a Shabbos Rosh Hashanah where we don't blow shofar. That's level number 2. And then there's level number 3 in the Beis Hamikdash where even Shabbos comes out of Rosh Hashanah, we blow shofar. As he's going to explain the different levels. V'yuvim behegdim abirat kil shofar. V'Shabbos ba'avodas ha'adam. Ha'avodah the shofar. Tamlichuni aleichem. U'bameh b'shofar. Hi inyan habit. When we say that we are making Hashem king, it means putting ourselves aside. We're accepting his kingship. We're saying he is the one who we need to listen to, who we need to follow. That's the idea of being machter. Ki yadua shachtoras hamelach nasas idea Bittul shalom shaydezet shemizbatim lefonav v'msiris ritzoyim v'nafshem elov misoider hamelach lachbeit v'melucha. We said before that a real king, the way someone's a king al pi Torah, is not an ego trip. It's not because the person wants to be a dictator or because he wants to rule or because he wants to boss people around. That's the first sign that he's not really a king. Rather, he doesn't want to do it. And how do we cause him to want to do it? It's when we put ourselves aside and we say, whatever you tell us to do, we accept. That itself is a bittul on our part, and that causes the haktaras hamelach. A common thing with the Bittul of Rosh Hashanah is the Bittul of Shabbos. What do I do on Shabbos? Shabbos is about not doing, not being creative, not adding to the creation. Azayin nirgeshes mitzius ha'adam sha'oisa malachtechul. Mash'en can be Yom HaShabbos to Mekatche v'kaim idea Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem made this holy, not us. Vayikadsheyu, the pasuk says. Hashem made Shabbos holy. Hareze k'moya oimed lifnei hamelach shlo yarim yadoy lasas malacha v'alfilu loy ba'ofen the mechvei b'machik bovad. There's an expression in the Gemara about someone that makes a circle in the air in front of the king that shows that he doesn't have the appropriate bittul and respect for the king. The same thing on Shabbos. Why are we not allowed to do malacha? Because on Shabbos, Hashem's presence is more felt. So because Hashem's presence is more felt, it's like standing in front of the king. You're standing in front of the king. You don't go ahead, typing on your phone. You're supposed to be still. So we see both Rosh Hashanah is about Bittul and Shabbos is about Bittul. So now when you have both coming together, we can understand how great the Bittul is. We have two Bittles on top of each other. Afal Pisha called Shabbos kosher, I mean in a Bittul canal. Hari moving Shab Bittul the Rosh Hashanah Shal Yodei Poilim Hachtaras HaMelech Hu Ba'ofen Naila Yoser Ma Bittul the Shabbos. First of all, just Rosh Hashanah alone is greater than Shabbos because we said before when someone is standing in front of the king, they're Bittul in front of the king. But it's not the same type of Bittul as the time when people take the king on to be their king. Then the bittul that they show to the king, the honor, the respect, the devotion they show to the king is much more than in an ordinary day when they're standing in front of the king. Uli, on the other hand, when Shabbos comes together with Rosh Hashanah, so it helps the bittul of Rosh Hashanah. Ahane a bittul the Shabbos la bittul the Rosh Hashanah. Ahane means like it helps. It assists, it adds to the bittul of Shabbos, to the bittul of Rosh Hashanah. Shab bittul the Rosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos, hu b'chinas Shabbos Shabbos. It's like a double bittul. Shabbos b'Shabbat also showing a double bittul. Legabe a bittul the Shabbos for Rosh Hashanah stam shechal b'mei Shvuah. When Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah come together, it's greater than an ordinary Shabbos, and it's greater than an ordinary Rosh Hashanah that comes on a regular day, because you have now the combination of both these things together. Yesh levayir malas habittul leRosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos legabe Rosh Hashanah stam. Why would it add anything? If Rosh Hashanah is about our accepting Hashem as King, what more can Shabbos add to that? What greater type of bittul and mesirah v'nesina does Shabbos add to the Rosh Hashanah? Al derech haShabbos harishona shahoisa b'smichas u'behemshach l'Rosh Hashanah harishon b'yamshish l'maytza b'reishis erev Shabbos. It says a very interesting thing. We said that Rosh Hashanah marks the sixth day of creation, when Adam Rishon was created. Following the sixth day of creation, there was a Shabbos. It says, even though the sixth day of creation was like so high and was Adam Rishon, and he accepted Hashem as king, and he said, Boyu nishtachv nechroi, he addressed the whole creation and said that the whole creation should bow down to the king. But then we reached something higher with the Shabbos following that first Friday. Let's see inside. Like we said before, as soon as we are bottled, as soon as we devote ourselves to someone because it makes sense to me, so then it's not about that person completely. It's about me. It's about what I understand. It's about what I feel. So my ego is involved. In addition to that, harei ishtachava atzma hi pu'ulasai shel hamishtachava. V'kivan shu oisa pu'ula afilu pu'ula sayishtachava shemavatas habitul shaloi hareze ba'oifen shenergeshes mitziyusoi. When I am bowing down to the king, I am doing an action. I'm doing an activity of bowing down. That still shows that I exist, but I exist as something that accepts the king as above me. What happens on Shabbos? Shabbos Adam Rishon did not say Boyu nishtachve v'nichra. Vaysafa ba Bittul yem Shabbos gaba Bittul Rosh Hashanah. Shaydi Bittul hamelech eina yachal lasis shum pula afilu loy pula sheishtachava ka'amur sheba'amdil fnei hamelech harei u'bebittul betachlis. We find this. You are very young, but it's a common thing that we've always heard from people that experienced it, that when they went by in front of the Rebbe, even if they planned to say something or do something, they were just like, they couldn't move, they couldn't say anything, they could barely look at the Rebbe. Even though what he was going to say was a tachsa bittul in the best way, etc., but still in all, the ultimate bittul is when a person loses themselves entirely. They can't even move. They can't even open their mouth. That's Shabbos after Friday. After Adam Rishon was created. After he did the pull of Boyu Nishtachava, the next thing was Shabbos. He can't move. He can't do anything. What does that mean that it's so bottled that he cannot even do any type of pu'ula? The Bittul yesh beis oifanim b'chlolos. Oifen ha'alef sha'adam mevatlas atzmayim moiser nafshi v'retzoyne l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu ad shekol mitziyusai eina ela eved melch k'maya eved shekol mitziyusai hi mitziyus ha'adam. Aval afal pikein kevan sheyeshna avodah shel bittul shenasai de ha'eved nirgeshes mitziyusai shel ha'eved. A person is deciding to become an eved. He is deciding to completely devote himself. Let's say, like you have again, the example of the Rebbe. You have people that said to themselves, I'm going to do what the Rebbe wants of me. But then there's the person that stands in front of the Rebbe and then completely loses himself. Cannot even think about even saying, I'm going to do whatever. It just, he's completely bottled. This is the second way. When you say that he's bottled to the king, that means there is him and there's the king, and he is bottled to the king. But rather, kivin she'ein metzias chutz ma'melech bittul betachlis. He doesn't even see himself as anything. When a person sacrifices themselves for Hashem, יש מסירת נפש באופן שנויסב לכך שמבין בשכלו שבשביל הקדוש ברוך הוא צריך למסור נפשי, המסירת נפש עצמה היא באופן שנרגש שמוסר נפשי לקדוש ברוך הוא. First of all, there's someone that logically says, I need to give up my life for Hashem. So again, whenever logic gets mixed in, it's already my metzias, like we said before. But even without the logic, if he chooses and he decides, I'm consciously deciding to give up my life for Hashem, it's still his metzias is there. Yes, dargenals yoiser shlo shayach lekroise b'shem mesiras nefesh kiven she'ein metzias shel nefesh shemoiser moiser la'kadosh baruch hu ki ma'kadosh baruch hu levadi. There's a type of level of mesiras nefesh which I like to call a knee-jerk reaction. The person doesn't even think twice. It's not like he thinks and considers, should I give up my life for Hashem, should I not? He can't even think about doing something else. Because there's no I in Hashem. There's no ego. There's no nefesh. There's no self. That he's being moiser nefesh. We know in the nefesh there's 5 levels. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yechida. But the Rebbe always brings down that the Medrash says, Chamisha Shemois Nikrula. The Nefesh has 5 names. That means there's a part of the Nefesh that's beyond the name. So even Yechida, which is the highest level, Echsidus always says that Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, comes from the level of Yechida, but it's not the ultimate. It's still Mesiras Nefesh. There's a Nefesh that's giving himself up. Ki a Bittul a mesiras nefesh di yechida hu kemudgish b'shem yechida ba'ofen di yechida liyachtach. It's part of a shyness. If you ever wondered, this lashon yechida liyachtach is part of a shyness. We say it. What does that mean? Myself together with Hashem's self. Haynu pe'ula shel liyachtach es hakadosh baruch hu u'b'meila nirgish inyan shel metzias. So that's not the highest level of mesiras nefesh. Is a etzam anashama she'ein lekroisa b'shem. It's higher than Yechida even. The kiven she'ein metzias she'yomer Allah shem v'toya afilu lo Yechida leyachtach. Therefore, it's bittul b'tachlis. Al pizem yesh levayr achiluk shebein habittul b'roshon shechal b'mei hashavua shemizbata yedei tkiyas shofar la bittul b'roshon shechal b'Shabbos shemizbata yedei zeh she'ein toikim b'shofar. It's like the difference of Adam Rishon on Friday to Adam Rishon on Shabbos. Hatkiyas b'shofar, he pe'ula shal his batlos. He's doing something, he's blowing shofar. Shemevatlas atzmel HaKadosh Baruch Hu machtir elam melech olav aloylam kulay al dverech achrazasi shal Adam Rishon boyu nishtach v'goymer haynu sheyeshna mitziyus shal Adam hamevatlas atzmel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's not yet the ultimate state of Bittul, because it's still him blowing shofar to express his Bittul to Hashem. Lo shayach sheyizka b'shofar v'yachers ala bittul hakadosh baruch hu b'oy nishtach v'goymer kiven shemetzias klal zolasi yizbarach. There's nothing besides Hashem. I'm going to blow. Who am I going to blow? I'm not here. I'm barely here. V'yiseidim ezeh shlilas ha'ishtachava he lo yirak mitzad ha'mishtach ve'elagam mitzad pu'ulas ha'ishtachava atzma ka'amar le'el siv gimel sheba'am de'lefnei ha'melech lo yarim es yadei afilu lo ba'ifin the mechvei b'machig, like we said before, not even to make a circle in the air to signal to somebody. Shebezen chlalas gam ashlila the pulas habitla det kiyas shofar. When a person stands in front of the king, they don't even do something that shows under bittul. Ki gam pulas habitl yubchiras mechve v'mocha. Even doing something that shows on bittul is like doing a movement in the air. Uba'amde lefnei hamelach ein shum mitzias ki mitzias hamelach belvad. So now we can understand what happens on Rosh Hashanah that comes out on Shabbos. And we move on. Shagam b'Rosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos nasa kadosh baruch hu melech aydei avidosam shel Yisrael. We are involved. It's not like we thought at the beginning of the Sikha, we're not doing anything. It's only happening automatically. No, we are doing an Avodah. But our Avodah is to be so totally bottled that we can't even move. El shavidasam eina ba'ofen shalasiyo pu'ula chiyuvis afilu loya pu'ula dishtachava habitul shaidet kiyas shofar ki im aideze shebetelim betachlis ad she'ein yichol mafilu litkaya b'shofar. So now the Rebbe is going to bring in a little bit deeper, according to Chassidus and Kabbalah, to be able to understand how this relates to a Gilui Elokus. We know that Hashem has in general two levels. The Rebbe doesn't use the names over here, Soiviv Kolalman and Mamala Kolalman. There's a level of Elokus that permeates the worlds, that relates to the worlds, that goes into every part of the world individually to give it its own specific chayas. That means it takes into consideration and allows place for the world. Then there's a level of Soiviv Kolalman, beyond the world. It transcends the world. Over there, the world is completely bottled. That's going to be the difference, similar to this, in Rosh Hashanah, where we blow shofar, versus Shabbos Rosh Hashanah, where we don't blow shofar. Yeshloimar shebeza afanim amurim ba'bit bulas hayis batlos oy bittul be'etzem kshurim im beiz afanim begilui ha'oira leki mitzad ha'oira leki shemislabish ba'olam lahavoisoi lachyoisoi lakaimoi, which is the level known as Memala Kolalman. Yeshna Metzias Ha'olam Va'adam. Ela Sha'adam Mevateles Atzmai Ves Ha'olam Lagava Ha'oira Lekisha Mechayu Mechava Mekaymois. Aval Mitzad Ha'oira Lekisha Lamaylam Ha'olam, known as Soiviv Kolalman, Ein Metzias Velosias Baruch Bittul HaMetzias Lagamri Ein Oid Malvadi. It's all part of the Achdus of Hashem. There is no separate entity, just like we don't blow shofar then. In general, the difference of the Oir Elokei that we tap into in the middle of the week versus the Oir Elokei that we're connected to on Shabbos. It comes down to us. It constricts itself, it limits itself to become down in us. V'lahachis kol protei hanivroim desheishis yimei bereishis k'maimer hamachadish betuvi b'chol yom taben ma'isa bereishis. Hainu sha'olam hu yeshu metzias v'tzarich levatloi. Because Hashem makes it, we need to be recognizing Hashem's presence in the world, and we have to make sure that it's connected and bottled to Hashem. So Hashem is like removed from the world. He's not involved in the details in the same way. It says, Chassidus explains, just like when a person, after they've worked hard, they rest, in Yiddish, the expression comes out a lot better, kommt zu sich, oder seine Keuches kommen zu sich. In other words, like all of his energies that he invested outward, those energies are now returning to him. So when Hashem Kaviyachol invested his energy, his chayis into the world, so all that chayis comes back to him on Shabbos. That's what it means Hashem rested. What's going to happen with the world? The world can't be separated from the chayis, or else it will cease existing. So what happens is that the world also comes along. By me, when I do work and I invest my chayis into the work, so the thing can remain even when my energy comes back. By Hashem, the world itself becomes elevated and higher on Shabbos because Hashem's koiches that make the world exist are also becoming elevated. Va'olam is olam l'sharshim m'koydam, olam is b'ri yitzirasiyam, is alam l'olam atzilus, sheboy meir u'mizgala b'chinas ha'chachma, chachma is koyachma, she'inyana tachlis ha'bitul, shehu levada yehu ve'ein zulasri. So that's the difference of Shabbos and the regular weekday. A regular Shabbos, a regular weekday. Regular weekday, it's about the world. A regular Shabbos is about how the world is completely absorbed in Hashem, and that's why we don't do work on the Shabbos, because our existence has to be completely bought. So now when Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos, so first of all, Rosh Hashanah shechal b'motzei shavua habitul begilui u'ledargis alakus shebe'erech l'metzias ha'olam, which is lahavas ha'olam v'lim loichalav, that Hashem created a world to be able to be king over it. V'lchein gam habitul why they pe'ula v'asiyah detkiyas shofar ba'ofen shenirgeshes mitziusay. When I'm blowing shofar, my mitzias is felt. By the way, there is an Indian, I don't know if you've seen about this, Yaakov, that it says something about the Baltikeya blows until his face turns red. You have that even without. But there's something, Adshi Yadimu Panav, and I think the Rebbe connects it with, because the idea of the shofar is to come down in the Gashmias of the world.
That's the whole thing about how long the kid does it. Like, it's not just to make it longer than the normal.
Right. There's a...
And people would train for a long time.
To make
I don't know exactly, I read some of their lessons, but yeah, it's a big thing.
Masha'enkim b'Rosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos habitul gam begolui hu ledarges ha'lekus she'ena be'erech ha'olam shelagabi dargezu lo yesh nemetzias ha'olam v'lachein gam habitul hu ba'ofen shel heder ha'p'ula v'asiyah she'ein toikim b'shofar bitul b'tachlis yesh loymar she'keinu gam b'negel l'amshachas v'gili Malchus yizbarech she'poilem ha'idei habitul inyan ha'achtara Sham shoche beroshon shechal b'Shabbos ha'idei Bittul b'tachlis shemizbata b'zeh she'ein toikim b'shofar hinaylis yoyser ma'am shoche she'ha'idei ha'p'ula t'kiyas shofar beroshon shechal b'motzei shavua. So now essentially he explained how when we don't blow shofar, we are doing an avodah of tamlichuni aleichem of a higher caliber. We are having a greater bittul in our avodah, and the oira leki that we're drawing down is of a higher level than a Rosh Hashanah that doesn't come out on Shabbos. So the only thing that's left to explain is now about the Beis Hamikdash. Why in the Beis Hamikdash we do blow, if not blowing is such a high level of bittul. So in the Beis Hamikdash, which is an even holier place, when it comes out on Shabbos, we should even more so not blow. Why do we blow the shofar when it comes out on Rosh Hashanah Shechaz b'Shabbos in the Beis Hamikdash? Amnam al pi zeh tzarich lahavin zeh she'b'mikdash toikim gam b'yom tov shel Rosh Hashanah Shechal b'Shabbos hari b'maimed u'matzav shel bittul ha'metzias ein mi she'yizka b'shofar, we said before. Like we explained before, sheyesh metzias ha'adam shemevatel es atzmai v'loy bitl ha'metzias legamri. Got the page?
Yeah, but we don't have the last page. 7 or 8. 7 and 10. I'm saying it doesn't end at 7 and 10.
That's, well, I'll explain to you later. V'yashleim Rabbi Yerbazem Gam shlilas hametzias shayeches legeder hametzias. Shelachein yesh tzoyrech b'shlilas hametzias. As soon as you need to say, this is not that, that means there's some type of yachas between one and the other. If there wouldn't be any yachas whatsoever, you wouldn't have to say, this is not that. They don't have any connection. And he brings a very basic example for this. Ka'omer al eze chachma rama v'amuka shehi efshar l'masha b'yadayim. Shekol shemea yitzchak loy. Lefi shechush ha-mishush eine misyaches v'noifel elal asiyah gashmis ha-tfesel b'yadayim. So from here you see that when you are shoylol something from something else, that means that there's some type of yachas between them. In our case, shagam ze shabam dein lefnei hamelech. Eine made mesyade lasses me'uma fil leilish tachves lamelech hainu shlils mitziyusoi hareze neche shayech hadayin legeder ha-mitziyus im ki be'ofen shel shlils ha-mitziyus. Why does he not move? Because movement still is something that he is a Metzias that's shaykh to, so he's completely nullifying his Metzias, he's completely being mevad himself, says, I will not move. Masha enkin kishe'ena shaykh legeder shel Metzias klal, gam lo shlil su bittul ha-Metzias, v'chol inyanoi hu ha-melech atzmoi, azai kisherotz na-melech u'shetiyeh z'asiyah, bevadai shlo yisakev afil l'rega echas lasa dover. Kivim she'ena choyshev klal al atzmei gam le al shlis mitziyusei v'chol inyanu sherotzna melech nishlam al yodai. There is such a type of devotion to the king that's, again, it's like a reflex reaction. It goes without thinking. He doesn't even think about it. It's like Yoel Kahn once gave an example that if a person sees that the Rebbe needs to have a Gemara, needs Gemara Shabbos or whatever, and he can either wait for the Rebbe to tell him, go bring me the Gemara Shabbos, or as soon as he sees that the Rebbe is looking for it, he doesn't even wait for the Rebbe to ask him. He right away, because, why does he right away go run? Because he doesn't have any self-awareness of himself. He doesn't even think that he's doing anything over here. He just automatically does it. Moving shebedar gezu hasir shalayu ba'ofen shenasam mela. Again, the best expression I can use is a reflex. He doesn't even think about it. Al derech menafshe kara. There's an expression in Gemara that brings down that there's an idea that the person would bow down in moedim without even thinking, because he didn't have to do a conscious effort that he's going to bow down. It's like automatically his body was like so trained, it was like a reflex. Automatically he's moedim, he's bowing down. There's no mitzias. He's not even aware of it. That's how his mitzias is completely bought. And therefore, you need to have shlilas hametzias. Lo yechoyla liyas hapula kiv shofar ki kol avodah puula gam avodah sapulas habitul he bestira la bitul b'metzias legamri. Avu b'mokim v'dargish shalom ma'ilem together sh'metzias klal ad shlo shaykh afilu shlilas hametzias ein hechrech b'matzav shel heder hapula dafke shlilas hametzias. El yochelias gam matzav shel peula v'asiya ve'ein ze bestira la bittul kivin she'ein ze bittul shel shlilas hametzias kim lamayla megeder shel metzias klal liyoisei chad mamish makadosh baruch hu. When, just a very simple example, when I want to do something, I want to pick up this cup, I'm not telling my hand to pick up the cup. Not consciously. And my hand is not consciously listening and saying, ooh, my mind wants to pick up the cup, so I'm going to pick it up. It's automatic. My hand is part of me. So as soon as I want something by a healthy person, my hand will right away stretch out and pick up the cup. Yidden are manifest in the Beis Hamikdash so much their yichud with Hashem that even their blowing shofar is not a stira to their bittul completely terebished. Yisrael v'kutribrichu kol achad, the Zohar says that Yidden and Hashem are entirely one. U'b'meila kivin shetkiyas shofar b'Rosh Hashanah hi mitzvah b'Torah. Nasis pula zu loy ba'ofen sheyeshna mitziyus shel ha'adam shtekeh b'shofar ela ba'ofen demenavshe kara. He's kneeling and bows down on his own. V'ad she'enim margish afilu shemenavshe kara ki im sha'apulot ki shofar nasis me'eleham. Oisches, the Indian said, Hatkia b'shofar Hamikdash b'Rosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos Mitzad Bitul Shalom Mailam Megeder Shematzias Klal Gam Loy Shlilos Hamatzias Nasai de Gilu Yor Elaki Shalom Mailam Megeder Hamatzias Legamri Gam Loy Ba'ofen Shal Shlilos Hamatzias Shlilos Achiyuv v'Shlilos Hashlimah. There, we spoke about before that there's Mamala Kalalmin and there's Soivev Kalalmin. Chassidus says Soivev Kalalmin, the fact that you're saying that it is Soivev Kalalmin, that means the world, Metzias, still is something that you're measuring it by. You're saying it's Soivev Kalalmin. This level, the level that's in the Beis Hamikdash, is beyond saying that it's connected with it and beyond even shoylul it. Because there's nothing but to be shoylul. There's nothing separate from Hashem completely. Gama oira lekishim es galabi am Shabbos b'chinas alakus shalom ma'olam ha'olam. Shaydei nasa bittul v'aliyas ha'olam ad leb'chinas ha'atzilas kanal sivav. Harei mezeh gufa sheshavas mikol malachtoi shlilas u'bittul ha'olam muchach shedar gezu shayeches legidrei ha'olam. Why did he have to stop? Because the world is still something separated in his mind from Hashem. So because the world is something separated in his mind from Hashem, he has to stop. He has to remove himself from here. Asura mekan leiskarav l'sham. Vafila habitul the chachma datzilas hu ba'ofen shehu lavadi hu ve'en zulasai shlil sametzias v'ad shagam ein sof hu toyer sheshoil sof shemoyer al shakusa l'gidra hametzias manu makim. These are all different levels in Kabbalah where we're talking about that we are still need to say things that don't apply by Hashem. Ein Sof. In other words, again, you would only have to say Ein Sof if there would be a possibility for you to think that there is a Sof. Why do you have to say Ein Zulasai? Is because there's a possibility that there is a Zulas. This is all the Bittul of Shabbos. You say, stop, don't do work, don't do anything. Well, the Mailam is higher than the level of Shabbos, higher than the Bittul of Chachma Datzilas, higher than the level of Ein Sof. Lamaila Gamegeder, the Mailo Mata, it's beyond something that you could say that's higher or lower. Milhusay Vatzmusi is Baruch, Shalamayla Mekol Toyar Vegeder, Shlilas Achiyuv, Shlilas Hashlilah. Shlilas Achiyuv means like not having to do, and also not even saying that it doesn't have anything to do. This level, the level of Hashem's very essence, that's beyond Soiva, beyond the Malay, that happens in the Mikdash. It's a fact that the Eibishter came down in the Beis Hamikdash itself, and that's why on Yom Tov Shalosh and Shchaz b'Shabbos you could do things in the Beis Hamikdash. V'lechein b'Mikdash ha'yitoikin gam b'Rosh Hashanah Shechal b'Shabbos. Ki mitzad mehusei v'atzmusi yizbarach shalamaylam kol toyer v'geder shezan izgala v'Mikdash ein hechrich b'shlil sametzias. Liyoisei gam shlilas hashlila v'adraba. Alla bertzaynei limlech ala oilam v'alla bertzaynei shachtara tiyai de pu'ula v'asiyah de tkiyas shofar dafke. And the person doesn't feel themselves that in the Beis Hamikdash they're not feeling themselves. I am blowing shofar. But it was like a reflex, it's automatic. A Yid is so connected to Hashem that he doesn't even think about it. The shofar blowing is happening automatically. B'signan acher ba'omek yoser yadua achiluk shem b'mitzvos l'Torah. Shem mitzvos hem tzivui la'adam eich li'snaig ba'olam. Hainu, sheyeshna mitziyusei shel ha'adam ve'olam. V'amitzvos hem lahoyres la'adam eich li'snaig ba'olam. That's what a mitzvah is. You're living in the world, you have a body, this is what your body has to do. This is what the world has to do. That's what a mitzvah is. It's also the idea that Rebbe in other places says the word mitzvah indicates that there is a mitzvah and a mitzvah. There is a person or there's a being, there's the Eibishter that commands, and then there's the person that's nitztava. So that shows there is two separate entities, Hashem and the world and the person. Torah really is beyond the world. It's even beyond mitzvahs. even when Torah comes down into having certain specific halachas, ha-mitzvos k'vi she'metzad ha-Torah lo nirgish mitzias ha'adam v'ha'olam ki im Torah. All that's felt is Torah. U'mitzias ha'adam v'ha'olam eina ela k'dei she'dinei ha-Torah yiskaimu v'poil. There's a word that says, Ani loy nivreisi ela l'shamish eskoini. What does that mean? There are two ways that a person can look at themselves. They could say, Hashem created a person, and then he told the person, you know, you have arms, put on tefillin. You have a head, learn Torah. You have a mouth, daven. You have feet, you should be running to Dvar Mitzvah. You have money, give tzedakah, etc., etc. There's a different way of looking at it. It's that Estakel Baraisa Bara Alma. Hashem looked into the Torah and he created the world, which means like this. In the Torah it says that he wants the mitzvah of tefillin. So Hashem said, it says in the Torah, tefillin, I got to give the person a hand. I got to give the person a head to put on this tefillin. It says you have to daven, so I got to give him a mouth. It says you got to eat kosher, so I got to give him a stomach. I got to give him tongue and teeth and everything else. Which means that it's not that my hand exists and Hashem wants my hand to put on tefillin. Hashem wants tefillin. And he gave us a hand so we should be able to put on the tefillin. That's what he's looking at it now. The Torah's perspective about mitzvahs is, Torah says there's tefillin. Torah is not interested in my hand. Torah is not a biology sefer. Torah wants tefillin. So it tells me this is the reason for my hand. So everything in the world, from Torah's perspective, is all part of Torah. It's all part of Hashem's will. Uladugma b'shofar, mitzad geder ha-mitzvah de shofar. If you're looking just at the mitzvah of shofar, which is the tzivui la'adam, yashna mitzias ha'adam, v'ha'olam, v'tzarech la'achtes ha'kadosh baruch hu l'melech ha'adam v'ha'olam, aydei tchiyas shofar. U'b'meila nirgeshes mitzias ha'adam v'ha'olam. That's all from the perspective of the mitzvah of blowing shofar. Avu mitzad ha'Torah reza lehepech. Shekivin she'olah b'rtzoyni is baruch shachta rasi tiyadei tkiyas shofar lachein nasis ha'pula tkiyas shofar u'b'meila loy nirgeshes mitzias ha'adam v'ha'olam kivin she'kol inyanam einay ela shal yadam yiskayim rtzoyni is baruch. These are, just like the shofar has no mind of its own, it's like the world has no mind of its own. The person, that's all how we are expressing Hashem's ratzon. Yes, Shloimar Shatkiya b'shofar b'Rosh Hashanah shechal b'Shabbos b'Mikdash sheikir inyan shel HaMikdash hu ha'arayin sheboi nimtzoyim haluchos v'sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote was there by the Aron, either by a board that stuck out of the Aron or in the Aron itself, which is all about Inyan HaTorah. Hi lamayla megeder shel mitzvah k'moshe Inyan HaShofar mitzad HaTorah. In the Beis Hamikdash, what do we have? We have the mitzvah of shofar the way Torah looks at it, not the way it's only a mitzvah. You could blow shofar without feeling that there's a person and a shofar and a mitzvah. It's all an extension of Hashem's ratzon. And then the Rebbe says, this nekuda applies also nowadays. There is something that we do on Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Chaz b'Shabbos. We say psukim of shofaris, which is the Torah part of shofar. Why? Because in Torah there's complete bittul, more than the mitzvah part. V'dugmasa gam b'zman hazeh, amiras psuki shofaris gam b'Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Chaz b'Shabbos. Shezeu in ha-shofar kfi shebeTorah v'nasa ba'ofen detan l'shoyni imrasecha. In the pasuk in Tehillim it says that my tongue says over your words. What does that mean? That my tongue says your words? Sha'Torah hi imrasecha. Torah is Hashem's words. Ela sh'l'shoyni ta'an. What does it mean ta'an? There's an idea called oina achra koira. There is the chazan will say something and the kol will say over the same words that the chazan says. When a person learns Torah, the true bittul of learning Torah is Tan l'shaynim resecha. I'm not feeling my Metzias, I am feeling how this is, I am saying Hashem's words. I'm a megaphone. I am speaking out Hashem's words over here. Total bittul. Ba'ofen she'Yisrael araisa v'kutzbrichu kol echad.